back to A&H Two-Person Podcast.
Greetings, loved ones.
I'm Haley.
I'm Ashley.
And this is our podcast.
It sure is.
This is our second episode.
Which we're recording directly after the first episode.
Because we realized that we don't shut up.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to do a whole series
in
one podcast.
When we were talking about it, we were like, oh my gosh, we'll just be able to talk about a whole 4 books in one episode. Wrong.
Yeah, no.
Because we're yappers. We are.
But it's so much to cover.
Yappers.
And so we want to be able to give Elle Kennedy the pristine respect she deserves.
But first, it's time for our jingle. So here's our intro music. Sung by our producer, Lindsay.
Our producer, Lindsay.
A&H Two-Person Podcast, where we talk about sexy books and hockey ass.
That was even better than the first time. I think we should recap on how we know each other. So,
yes.
Started
Haley, as a book club.
Yeah, Haley and I started a book club at work when we were talking one day and realized we read a lot of the same types of books. No one else wants to be in our book club.
Well, people wanted
to, and then we told them about what.
Like, we read sports romance, dark romance, cowboy romance.
Mm-hmm. And everyone said, on second thought, no.
Nor. So
it's been the A&H Two-Person Podcast, essentially. Book club since then. And then, whenever we're together, we just can't stop laughing. Or yapping.
Nope.
So Haley decided that we should make a podcast. And Haley is convinced that it's going to blow up.
It's going to blow up.
And I am convinced that we're going to have 6 listeners, 3 of which will be ourselves and Lindsay, who is our producer, who's also here. Yes. Lindsay is still learning what a producer does, and honestly, so are we.
I'm working on it.
She's doing some research.
What does a producer do?
She's currently Googling, what does a producer do?
What is a podcast?
She's going to do some research. So, with that being said...
the other thing...
And how much do they make?
Well, right now
our budget is $0.
Zero.
So you get our friendship, and that's it.
And our appreciation.
Yeah. I think the other thing we should do is readdress our rating system. So
yes.
On Book Talk, and I guess the internets in general, the rating for the spice level of books is chili peppers, and it goes usually from like 0 to 5 chili peppers. But we decided, because I was reading a book and needed to take a break from it because it was too sexual and too intense, that we should do a rating involving cigarettes, because sometimes you just need a nice refreshing menthol.
Yeah, she literally texted me.
Your...
She texted me and said, I need a cigarette after reading chapter 4. And I said, oh dear. So now we rate our books with how many cigarettes did you need to chain smoke while reading it.
With the max being a pack, which is, again, 20 cigarettes.
We think.
Please,
because we
slide into my DMs if you
know if that's not correct. So that is how we rate ours. Lindsay's looking it up. How many cigarettes? 20.
All right, we did
correct.
It.
See, 20. Look, she's doing her producer thing. We are already.
It's going better than last episode already.
We are only up from here, boys.
All right. So like we said last episode we were really convinced we were going to talk about the entire Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, but we made it through one book. So now we're going to talk about the second book. So this is The Mistake by Elle Kennedy.
Second book in the series.
Yeah, second book in the series.
And so, like we said, this book follows Grace and Logan. Mm-hmm. Logan is a hockey player at Briar University, and he is a junior at this time, I believe.
Yeah, the book starts in their junior year, so it's in the same time frame of when Hannah and Garrett start dating. Well, it's a little after they start dating, and you'll see why shortly.
Yes. And then Grace is a freshman at Briar University.
She sure is. A sweet baby freshman.
And as we were talking about in the last podcast, all the guys that the books are about, Dean, Logan, Garrett, and Tucker, they all live together. And we were talking about how goofy they were. Well, right off the bat, in the beginning, the guys are all in the living room talking, and literally they're talking about what makes a good dick pic.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about
And
this.
they're like, just out of curiosity, what constitutes a nice cock shot?
And
I
this
mean,
But
is
this
it the
is because
lighting?
Dean like sent a picture to someone.
Yes.
Right? And everyone else is like, no, I don't send like nudes. They're like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. But
They're
Dean's
like judging.
he's like, you absolutely or maybe it wasn't that. How did it come up? Someone sent one in exchange for a picture of boobs.
No, I think because I guess
I think
I
that's
don't
what
know.
it was.
Something like that.
Okay.
But Dean, puts his 2 cents in because Dean is the ultimate
Player.
player. But he says, well, the trick is you got to keep the balls out of it. And I'm like, oh my god. And then he's like, seriously, balls aren't photogenic. Women don't want to see them. And they're just like going back and forth. And I'm just like, oh my god. Like, they're just.
And that's how this book opens, right? Like,
Yep.
that is within the first
It's at least like the
pages
first
of
couple
the
pages.
book.
Because it starts where Logan like leaves to go to a guy's like house party, but he forgets his phone.
Mhm.
And he can't remember like what the guy like said like his dorm number was.
Yeah, he thinks he remembers the dorm building, but not
the number.
the number.
And so he knocks on the door, and it ends up being Grace's dorm.
Yep.
And he's like, do you mind if I like use your phone to call? And then he's like, holy shit, are you watching?
She's watching
like,
Die Hard 2.
Yes, Die Hard 2. And he's like, do you mind if I watch this scene? It's really good. And she's like, you can just watch the movie.
Yeah. And Grace like has a little crush on him, but she's realistic about it. She's right?
like, there's no way
she's
he's
like,
gonna
LOL, John Logan is not gonna like little
No.
freshman me.
No.
But 7% in the book, which I have highlighted.
Yes.
When he gets to the door, it's his chapter and says, I hear movement like behind the door at least. That's a good sign. Then the door swings open and I find myself looking at a total stranger. Granted, she's a very pretty stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. And at that moment I was like, oh, he down bad already.
Yes. And then literally at 10%, they're like sitting there watching the movie, and he like touches her cheek. And
I have this highlighted
he's
too.
like stroking her cheek, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, you were looking at me like you wanted me to kiss you. So I was thinking I might do that. And
the scream I
was like,
when I first read that.
Oh yeah. And then they like start to like kiss, and then I think that he starts like fondling her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she basically fakes an orgasm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And because he has an orgasm.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go. Well, he's like, did you finish? And she was like,
oh yeah. And then he just leaves.
Yeah, he cleans up and leaves. And then she's like, well, that was literally the worst. She's like, wow, what a terrible human person. He doesn't even like.
Yeah, she literally said, I have to face the facts. I'm just another girl on a long list of John Logan's conquests.
But then you get to his chapter like right after that, and he's like, she faked it.
Yeah,
I know she faked it.
His first sentence, has a girl ever faked an orgasm with you? I blurt out. It's 8:00 on Monday morning, and I'm tapping my fingers on the kitchen counter as I look at my roommates. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh.
And so then like he literally like gets a consensus from all his roommates, and they're like, yeah, dude, she did. So he like rushes back over to the dorm.
I saved this quote because I think it's hysterical. I clench my teeth at the reminder. There'd been a lot of moaning, sure, but I'm 99% sure, percent certain that she didn't have an orgasm. So
then he like runs back over there, and she was like, he basically like walks in and is like, you didn't finish.
Yeah, but he also, like, did not get her number, did not leave his number, so he has to just, like, run to her dorm again and
Yes.
hope that she's there.
Yes, and he's like, "So you're gonna let me in or what?" And or he was like, "So you're gonna let me or what?" And she's like, "Let you do what?" And he's like, "Let you have an orgasm."
Um, the quote that I have saved there is, "Because I've been thinking nonstop about how I didn't make you come last time, I shrug, and how badly I want to change that."
Oh,
My eyes bugged out of
Oh,
my
yeah.
head.
yeah. And
And
then
then, well, he's
she-
like going to like a lecture or something, right? She's got
Yeah.
class, and he's going to like
Like
a study group
group.
or something, and he's
Yes.
like, "I have 30 minutes," and she's like, "Don't you have to go to study group?" And he's like, "It only takes 10 minutes to walk there." I
Yeah.
was like,
Well, then he was like, "Are you gonna let me?" And she's like, this is the first time a guy has ever shown up at my door asking me that. You realize how crazy that sounds, right? And he goes, "You want to talk crazy? I spent the whole weekend fantasizing about it."
Oh.
And
down bad.
he was
like
like,
truly.
"Oh yeah."
The
He's like, "I'm
downest.
not usually such an ass, okay?" And then he's like, raspfully saying, like, "Get on the bed." I'm like, "Oh, whoa."
It escalated very quickly.
Oh yeah.
I love going down on a girl. The first time I did it, I was 15, and it turned me on so freaking much I came in my pants. Ladies and gentlemen, Elle Kennedy just knows how to write a man, because we love
yeah.
a little humiliation.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, and then I think the like best part about it is like in the beginning. I don't know if I think it's night 1. They're like talking about like she's like doing her nervous babbling and she's like
Oh my
talking
gosh,
about Ted Bundy.
about Ted Bundy.
And she's like, "You're not like Ted Bundy, an attractive serial killer,
Yeah,
right?"
he was like something charming, and she's like, "You know who else was charming? Ted Bundy. Let me list all of the things I know about Ted Bundy."
And then he was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "Sorry, I'm a nervous babbler." And then it's just like funny because like they reference Ted
It's
Bundy
a running
like
joke
way
throughout
later
the
in the
book.
book. Like he talks about it. Oh god, it's so good.
Yep. I know at this point that this boy is down bad.
Oh,
already.
yeah.
Like, right? He sprints to the cafeteria
And his
like,
internal monologue is just like,
yeah, and kisses her in front of everyone. And then they go and like sit on the water tower of his hometown and like talking about all of these.
they're like family. That's how like
Yeah.
the topic of like his family, like how they don't get along comes up. And it's just like, what the heck? So then I think it's that night or like the next night they're like having another little like
she
hookup
asks him to come
sesh. She asks him to come over. They're like talking, watching a movie, and then finally
Well, and she's
like,
trying to get it at that point. She's like,
Yes.
"I'm going to lose my virginity to John Logan."
yes, she's like, "I'm ready."
Mhm.
And then I think that she tells him, like, "I'm a virgin."
Yeah, and he's like, "Whoa, stop right there."
And I think he like semi knew,
Mhm.
but like when she said it out loud, he was like already like still kind of thinking like, I feel like I'm using her as a distraction. So he was like, "I can't.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this." And he just like basically like stormed off, and she was just like laying there
Granted,
naked.
this is after she blew him too. Like she's giving
Yes.
him a
She had
blowjob
just given
or
him
provided
yes.
him fellatio, as we said in the
Yes.
previous
Yes.
episode.
And so then like he's like at home and he feels awful about it, and he like feels his phone vibrate and he's like, "Oh, thank God she's texting me. Like I've been texting her, like she hasn't answered, like she doesn't think I'm the Antichrist." And he goes, "The message isn't from Grace, it comes from an unfamiliar number." And he's like, "It takes me a solid 10 seconds before I'm able to register what I'm reading. No, what I'm seething over." And the message reads, "Hey, this is Ramona. Just heard what happened with you and Grace. Need me to come over and comfort you," with a winky face.
Which is
Her
horrible.
best friend.
But so is this after he has the talk with Wellesley or before?
I think
It has to be after, because that's when he starts trying to get Grace back. You know what I mean? I don't know in what order it comes. Oh,
I want to say after that is when he has the talk, because I think he's kind of like overthinking stuff and like slumming it and just kind of like depressed.
Yeah.
And then finally Hannah's like, "What's wrong?"
Hannah literally, well, not literally, but essentially says to him, "Sit your ass down. We
Yeah.
need to have a chat."
Because he's not doing like the thing he was doing before. He was like binge drinking and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like down in the dumps, like not talking to anybody. And so finally, like
Mhm.
everyone's asking what's wrong, and like he's just being like super rude. And finally Hannah was like, "What is wrong?"
Well, but Hannah also was like, "We need to talk about this."
Yes.
Because she has realized since book 1 as well
Yes.
that Logan is into her.
Yes.
But Garrett just keeps saying he'll get over it. But she's like, we need to have a talk. And he's like, what do you want me to say, Hannah? I'm super into you. And she's like, are you into me or are you into the idea of being in a relationship? And he's like, mind blown, because he's like, that's never what I wanted. But now he's like, damn, but is it? And then she's like, so maybe you want a relationship? And he's like, yeah, with someone just like Grace, with her Ted Bundy rants and her like all of these other things. So he is really just trying to get Grace back, and she refuses to answer him.
Yes.
But that message ruins her friendship with Ramona too. And then it's essentially the summer. And Grace goes to Paris
to see her mom, where she lives. And Logan has to go back home because his dad owns an auto shop. And his older brother, Jeff, works there, and he works there during the summer.
They go for a run, and they're running in the park in Hastings. Yeah.
Wait, I forgot. When they're on the water, this is a part, because when they're on the water tower, he's like, this is like my serenity spot growing up. Do you have one of those?
Yes.
And she's like, yeah, do you know that little gazebo in the park and like near Briar? And he's like, oh yeah. And she's like, that's where I go. Well, that's where she's sitting when he goes on a run.
Yeah, so they go for this run, and he like runs by, and he's like, oh, that's Grace's spot. And then he's like,
that looks Grace. Like her. And he's like, but she has blonde hair. That's not Grace. And then he like sees her look up from her book, and he goes, holy shit, that's Grace.
Yep.
And then he's like, I don't think it is. And Dean's like,
no, your girl's a brunette. Like, she's not a blonde.
I'm going, but if it's like, not her, I'm going for it. And he like gets a better look, and he's like, hell no, it's Grace. You ain't going nowhere, player. And so then, like, basically,
he like goes and tries to win Grace back.
Yeah, he's like, give me a chance, like, show you I'm not an asshole.
I want to take you on one date. And she's like, no. She's straight up, good for her though, honestly. Oh, yeah. She's like, I ain't got it.
Yeah. And so then, like, he basically is like trying to convince her. And then another thing that like made me laugh, like, Dean is so funny.
Oh my gosh,
Dean and Logan both. They're all funny, but Dean is so funny. It's like cuts to them like a few scenes later of like them going to the like freshman year like walk-on tryouts, and it's like I forgot, it's literally Hunter Davenport from one of the books in the second
series, yeah.
And he's like, Dean's like, oh, he's joining the team. Because, like, I guess Coach had to, like, convince him to join the team because he didn't want to play.
And because everyone else sucks. Like, all of the walk-on candidates are terrible. Yes. Granted, this is a team that has won the Frozen Four 3 years in a row. And now they've lost their, like, star goalie.
They've lost everybody.
Birdie's gone. All they have is, like, this junior squad of people, which is Garrett, Logan, Dean, and Tucker. Fitzy, who we meet in the second series too, and then Hollis, who was an absolute disaster.
He needs his own book.
I wish he got one, but honestly,
I know he's a side character. He's a great one. But Dean's like, oh, he's joining the team. I don't care if I have to suck his dick to get him to agree to it. And everyone just like looks back at him. And
he goes, like a running thing through all the books, because even in Dean's book, like Dean maybe being a little gay comes up multiple times.
Yes, and then Logan goes, sucking dick now, are we? And then he says an evil gleam lights his eyes. You know what? I won't just suck it. He says, I'll suck him off.
He says completion.
But then he goes, give him an orgasm, because he was the one that Logan confided in
about not giving
Grace an orgasm.
Oh my gosh!
So he's just messing with him, and he's like, he goes, I'm not sure if you all know this, but an orgasm is the point of completion in the pleasure process.
The pleasure,
and he just keeps going on and on.
Oh.
And Logan's like, that's enough, and he goes like, are you sure? Some people don't know what it means. And I'm like,
I almost died. I laughed so hard.
So hard.
Around this time as well, Grace meets up with Ramona, and they like try to rekindle their friendship. So Grace, in this book, is no longer living with Ramona. She has a new roommate named Daisy, who I love.
Love Daisy.
And Daisy's like, I work at the campus radio station, and Grace is like, I want to work at the campus radio station. So Grace goes and gets a job and gets asked out on a date by Morris, who's one of the other producers at the station. And the date that they go on is, of course, because it's college, to a party.
Where she runs into
none other than
Logan.
John Logan, while she's coming out of the bathroom.
Yes.
And instead of just like being nice and leaving her alone, they make out while she's on a date with this other man.
And then he walks up a few minutes later.
He sure does.
And she's like the nervous babbler she is. On the way home, she tells him about all of it.
Yeah. And so then John Logan decides he needs to go to Morris's
dorm
and declare his intentions
with Grace.
Which is hysterical. But what's even funnier is that then Morris becomes like a recurring character in the book.
Yes. Because they become besties because he sees he's playing the game.
Mob Boss.
That Fitzy does
like reviews
on YouTube about.
And I love that this is our introduction to Fitz, because you know Fitz is like my favorite man in this whole series.
Yes. And it's just, oh god, it's so good. So then finally he's like, do it, man, like whatever.
Oh yeah, he tells him to punch him.
So Haley here, Ashley and I decided to kind of not talk about the book as in depth as we did on episode 1. So you'll notice that we kind of left off with Logan and Morris kind of hitting it off in a bromance, and Logan saying that he needed to get Grace back. Spoiler, he does, and they end up together. So from now on, we will, as you'll see in episode 3 and so on and so forth, just kind of talk about small things in the book, highlights, things like that. So that is why it ends the way it does. Okay, Lindsay's gonna read some 1-star Goodread reviews of The Mistake by Elle Kennedy.
Reading from Grace's point of view was like losing a brain cell. Hold up. What was the other one? Logan is annoying as fuck. What was it?
Wait,
What was it?
this is my favorite. Are you ready? What in the Christian mingle was this? If I didn't know it was written by a woman, I would have thought a man wrote this shit.
Now we're gonna do the segment that we didn't do on the first podcast.
We just keep adding more segments to this podcast.
Because we are truly ambitious. But it's gonna be funny tweets that we found this week. Just kind of about whatever.
Most of them are about hockey, though, because we're both somehow on hockey Twitter.
This one says, if I were Jack Hughes, this was yesterday when Nico posted pictures of himself from vacation. It said, if I were Jack Hughes, I would simply send Nico a DM saying he looked sexy today.
Amen. No notes. Okay. Mine is, the point of hockey is not to score goals and win games. The point of hockey is to get slutty.
Love that. This is also in reference to Nico's summer pics. It's him on the beach, and it says, because he's got a large hockey butt, and it says, like, where he going with all that ass? Like, damn, say something for the rest of us.
So this one, I also really appreciated. It's a picture of Matthew Tkachuk and the Stanley Cup and a horse. And the horse is eating out of the Stanley Cup, and it says, and I quote, I know a, quote, but Dad, I wanted a pony, quote, child, when I saw one.
Yes. This one says, why has Jack Hughes risen me up on NHL 24 right now? And it's literally a screenshot of Be a Pro conversation, and it's teammate Jack Hughes. Hey, Danny, I'm going out for a coffee. Want to join me? The computer.
Someone tweeted Jack Hughes reference, and it says, I can cross my arms. He's small for a hockey player. Probably 5'11".
The fact that we think that people that are 5'11" are like short, like 5'2".
I'm legitimately 5'3".
I'm 5'2". It was on July 12th. It was Jack Hughes on the ice for the first time since his shoulder surgery. It says, bionic shoulder boy, sign of life. Also, hi, Captain Quinn. Because Quinn's also out there with him.
A&H Podcast, where we talk about sexy books and big hockey butts.
I don't think that can be the jingle.
Just stop it right there.
My mother-in-law might listen to this.
Yeah. All right. I think that's where we should cut it off today.
Yeah, I think so too.
I hope that you all have enjoyed, and we look forward to the next episode.
Yes.
Which we'll record at some point.
One of these days.
One of these
TBD.
My microphone is on. Okay, I was like,
Is this thing on?
testing.
Apparently, you have made a grave mistake. You have done it now. You have made a scene.
You have caused a ruckus.
Well,
And
on that note, be kind to one another. Let's all be brothers in Christ, alright?